We just heard boom, boom, boom.
It's a scene we see too often in Los Angeles and all of Southern California. A hit-and-run collision, a victim or victims, their lives, if not ended, then changed for the worse. The most vulnerable are people walking across the street and bicyclists, no matter where they are. In the majority of the incidents, the driver literally gets away with the crime, driving away into obscurity, never to see the inside of a courtroom. There's a new effort in the works to change that, a plan that makes use of today's technology, along with the age-old appeal of money, a reward that can make doing the right thing satisfying financially and for your conscience. Good Sunday morning, everybody. Before we go full bore into today's program, we want to show you a clip, just a little 15, 20-second clip. It's from our newscast on March 24th, 2013. Susan Hirasuna was the anchor that night. Take a look.
Volunteers joined law enforcement near the Griffith Park soccer field, desperately trying to find a driver who ran down a cyclist a month ago.
There's a unique geography to this hit and run that makes it highly likely that the van was coming from either from the soccer fields or from the dog park. There's only one road out of this area, and that was the road that Damien was hit on.
Damien Kevitt was hit on Zoo Drive by a light-colored minivan on February 17 and dragged some 600 feet on an on-ramp to the 5 freeway. They think the driver might have been wearing a soccer jersey. Kevitt had 20 broken bones, and doctors needed to amputate his right leg below the knee. He's still recovering in the hospital. Today, flyers were handed out in the area asking for information and informing the public of a $25,000 reward.
And again, that's a clip from our March 24th, 2013 newscast. I hope that you got that picture of the young man on the poster there, showing him in the hospital, and we're delighted to show him to you now. There you are. Look at you with a prosthetic.
Yes, most of me. I'm mostly here.
Yeah, and along with you is Joe Buscaino, the councilman representing the 15th district, which is more or less the Harbor district. Yes. You have a story to tell. You have a story to tell, and we're going to cover it all this morning. You've had enough. You're a former LAPD officer. Right. I'm sure you've investigated lots of hit and runs, but you and Mitch Engler, who's a retired officer, you guys have seen enough as far as hit and runs.
Well, the city of Los Angeles has the distinction of being the top city that has the highest number of hit and run crimes in the country, 20,000. And along with my partner, Mitch Englander, we said enough is enough. We need to look at some legislative actions to see what we can do to change the driver apathy of hit and run crimes across the city of Los Angeles. We've partnered with our colleague in the state assembly, Assembly member Mike Gatto, who has put forth a bill very similar to an Amber Alert that when someone is involved in a hit and run crime, license plates will be posted on electronic billboards. And locally, we've put together a companion bill to, one, offer reward motions, standing rewards from property crimes to fatalities. Our goal is to bring some peace to families who have lost loved ones to hit and run crimes. And secondly, put some social pressure using on these idiot drivers who are not stopping at the scene of traffic accidents.
Why do we have so many idiot drivers here?
No. Well, we need, because folks are afraid of what's going to happen once they stay at the scene of a traffic accident. Again, an accident is an accident. The minute you flee becomes a crime. And we've seen it far too often, and you have covered it far too often as well. We have standing reward motions for graffiti, vandalism, and also illegal dumping. And we're saying, why not have a standing reward for hit and run crimes in the city of Los Angeles? And we're taking those appropriate steps.
And there are times when you may have a legitimate accident where the driver is not necessarily at fault, but the moment that they decide to go, it becomes a serious crime, a felony.
Especially if it involves injury, absolutely. I worked West Traffic Division for a few years when I was with LAPD, and it was one of the most tragic incidents that I had to handle, especially when it involved a fatality. Again, we're trying to send the message to drivers across the city of Los Angeles is stop, exchange information, get folks engaged, especially witnesses. Our LAPD detectives, our traffic detectives are the best in the country, but they need folks to come forward. And we're hoping that the incentive of offering a reward that will encourage more witnesses to come forward so our LAPD detectives can do their jobs.
Damien, you were just on a ride with your wife?
With
that
my
day?
wife, yeah, in Griffith Park, which, you know, is normally a very safe place to ride. A lot of bicyclists, a lot of pedestrians, runners, you know, in that area there. And it was midday, 11:35 in the morning. And what would have been a very simple collision, I don't think the driver who I collided with saw me. You know, I certainly saw him at the very last moment and swerved. We were not going fast. I would have probably walked away with a few cuts and bruises, likely not even a broken bone. But because he chose to flee from the scene of the collision there, I ended up trapped underneath his car and dragged as he took off down the freeway.
Talk to us about that, because it's a horrific story.
It's
the time underneath his vehicle.
You know, it's one of those things where I describe it as the most miraculous tragedy you could possibly imagine. The fact that I'm here alive, able to talk to you, and you know, being dragged 600 feet. How many people can survive 600 feet underneath a car at freeway speeds? You know, I started on the streets of Griffith Park, but he took off onto the freeway and was left in traffic lanes in the 5 freeway. And the only reason I survived was because I was conscious enough to be able to figure out how to get free from whatever I was caught on underneath his car.
You were able to think about that as your pavement is going by underneath you? And
oh, I was, I mean, I definitely had my, you know, moments where I was thinking, am I going to survive this? Am I going to meet my maker at this point in time? Or do I, you know, fight to get free? And what are the consequences? You know, if I fight to get free, am I going to end up a cripple and unable to do anything, unable to move? And I couldn't go as a skid mark on a freeway. You know, just not my calling. So I fought to get free, and I ended up in traffic lanes in the 5 freeway. And it started this, you know, turn of events that at the time I didn't realize how bad the epidemic of hit and runs in Los Angeles is. And, you know, and you hear the ideas, the concept of this epidemic, or this, you know, we're the worst in the country. The figures are horrific. I mean, the figures, one figure puts it at 48% of all accidents in Los Angeles are hit and runs. 7,500 people every year sent to the hospital or killed in the county of Los Angeles. And those are hard figures. You know, that's not fluff. That's the actual stats of it. Even one person is unacceptable, but 7,500 people, mostly those are pedestrians. Those are 60% of those people are pedestrians. So, you know, I survived this accident, and you could say I was given a second chance. And how that occurred and the story behind it is enough to fill a book. But the fact that I'm alive and I'm here, you know, it's one of those things where you have to step up to the plate and go, how many more people is this going to happen to, and what can I do about it?
I wonder if in a spiritual sense this was the opportunity for you to find your what you needed to do in life.
You know, in a way, this might sound bizarre, but I can attest to it as being 100% true. My life, in a way, is better now than it was before. Do I recommend anyone go through what I went through? No. I mean, it is an effective weight loss program. You know, it is definitely a good way to get some time off work, but would I recommend it? No, not the way to go. That said, here I am. And if I can prevent just one other person from having to go through what I went through, then okay, you know, I've had some closure. And the truth is, at this point, with the help of the councilman and others who have stepped on, and Mike Gatto, we've been able to prevent a lot more than just one, because there's this growing movement of need for safer streets across Los Angeles, and specifically the area of hit and runs, which is just horrific. I mean, it's a moral, you know, when you hit someone, again, whether or not you're at fault, once you run, that's a moral choice. That's not part of civilization. That's not a humanity point. That's an insanity point.
We should take a break before we get going too far on this. So let's take care of that now. When we come back, we'll show you some information on where you can get in touch with both of these fine gentlemen. But stay with us. We'll be back in about 2 minutes.